Okay, there we go. So now we're recording. Yeah, so Miranda took hypnobirthing, gosh, like 2 years ago?
Yeah, almost. Well, I got pregnant almost 2 years ago because it's my
Yeah.
anniversary today. So,
Oh,
yeah.
happy
Um, so what, a year and a half ago and something like that. But yeah, it was really good actually. But and I'm so glad that I did it because I found it really empowering. Um, but so many of my friends were weird about it. Hello. But hey, I did a 27-hour labor and the only drugs I used was the gas and they had to turn that off in the end. So, you know, I think I did pretty good.
nailed it.
Hey? Yeah. Here you are, all healthy and cheeky. What, I don't know what is with this climbing all of a sudden, but
Let him at it.
showing off.
Yeah, so I'll turn it over to you. So
Yeah, sure.
Cass, feel free to unmute yourself and just ask. We don't mind. Baby crying is fine. Don't worry about it. Or if you feel better, if you feel better typing things in the chat box, you can do that too. Whatever works for you. Yeah, cool. All right, Miranda, I'm gonna put myself on mute, so it's over to you.
Okay, I'm just trying to line myself up so it's not so, yeah, that's a bit better. So my name's Miranda Partridge. I am a nutritional medicine practitioner, which is very similar to a naturopath. But my whole goal really is to, you know, have a look at what's really going on with your body, not just dealing with symptoms, but dealing with the cause of those symptoms. So, you know, I work with clients one-on-one mostly, but I do share some things, you know, on my Instagram and stuff like that. But really, when I'm working with a client one-on-one, it's all about really getting to that nitty-gritty and understanding, you know, their history and their family history as well as everything else. And so when I look at health generally, it doesn't really matter what's going on with the person. Most of the time it comes back to those basic healthy eating things. And I find that, you know, I mean, people find them difficult for whatever reason. Hey, what's happening? Oh gosh. But it's just, you know, my job might just be either giving it to them in a framework that works for them a little bit better, or you know, oh gosh. Or just reminding them of something that they already know. So yeah, so today, talking pregnancy, talking motherhood, we are going to talk mostly about those general healthy eating things, but I'm going to give you guys some actual, you know, actual food options to make that work for you. Never done it with a child before. It's very distracting. Yes. But yeah, so when we're thinking about food, a lot of people say, oh, you know, I really want to look at my macros and stuff like that. But that's not how I do food. I find that when we're really focusing on our micronutrients, which are minerals, vitamins, phytochemicals, all of those essential nutrients that our body cannot create itself and therefore we need to eat through food. I already have a drink bottle up there for you, Baba. Yeah. When we're thinking about those, then it's easy to get those macronutrients in balance, really. And it's all about, you know, doing our best to really listen to our intuition of what our body needs, rather than what we feel like having in the moment just because we're stressed or bored or whatever reason it is. And it's not a judgment of, you know, you're somehow bad because you are giving into those I'm bored, I'm tired, I'm stressed sort of things. It's what is causing those feelings and what is causing that response and how can we work with that. So that's kind of where I come from with food. But when I'm talking about like vitamins and minerals, things like vegetables, oh, thank you, vegetable chips. Vegetables are a huge component of healthy eating. And I find most people don't eat the minimum 5 serves of vegetables a day. And that is such a huge component of it. You know, we get so many of the most commonly supplemented nutrients we can actually get more of if we're just eating those 5 serves of vegetables a day. So 1 serve is 1 cup of raw or half a cup of cooked vegetables. And it can seem really daunting, but when you really start to focus on those whole foods and those high nutrient dense foods in your diet, it makes it really easy to get all of that stuff in, because you're kind of, you know, basically saying, you know, should I have bread or should I have like a couple of vegetables instead? Not that you can't eat bread, of course, but if bread is the mainstay of your diet throughout the day, like toast for breakfast, a sandwich for lunch, and then you're having pasta for dinner, bread, a lot of it's quite devoid of nutrients generally. And you are really kind of doing yourself a disservice there, because you aren't allowing your body to, you know, have a wide range of food. So that's where I really go with all of this. And for my personal diet, I'm gluten-free, dairy-free. I can't eat those foods other than butter. So for me, having those not as an option at all, it makes it really easy for me to have higher density nutrient foods, because I just can't. Yeah. With pregnancy, the aim really, like, yes, you want to protect the baby and you want to, you know, improve the development of the baby and all of that sort of thing. But I think one thing that we forget, and it kind of then transfers into motherhood, is we forget that we also need to protect ourselves from complications, whether that be, you know, with the pregnancy or the birth, or even further along after the baby is born. So things like postnatal depression, anxiety, postnatal thyroiditis. If we really are focusing on, you know, giving ourselves as much nutrients as we can, generally, we can help to protect ourselves from those sort of complications. So I really look at putting in those foods as much as I can for those particular reasons. So we can talk about a few nutrients that are really important in pregnancy. Oh God, darling, can I please have that? And we can talk about some foods, of course, as well. Oh, there we go. But I find the other sort of part of that that's really important is, what are you doing? Sorry. There we go. You can't, you know, you've got to find that balance. Like, it is very easy, especially like in the first trimester of being pregnant, to just not really be eating the best at all. Like, you're feeling nauseous all the time or vomiting. Oh, I gotta love that when I was pregnant. And you're tired, and there's just a huge change happening in your body. You've got new blood vessels and a whole new organ and a baby all growing within you. And it's just, the hormones are going nuts and everything. So there's a lot going on, and it can be really hard. But in those moments, that's when it's better to look at, you know, making healthier choices. And if you don't make the healthiest choice, not berating yourself for making such a terrible choice, because that usually means that, you know, if you've eaten some chips, you'll probably then go and eat like a whole tub of ice cream because you feel crappy about yourself, and you're kind of setting yourself up for that. Can I please have my hair? Thank you. Setting yourself up for that cycle. So, for example, like, I would say that one of my biggest cravings in that first trimester was chips. All I wanted was hot chips all the time. So the best thing for me was roast potatoes. And the easiest thing with that is, like, don't peel them. And I always say, like, I don't peel any of my vegetables. I just can't be bothered most of the time. But yeah, like, there's more nutrients in vegetables that are unpeeled anyway, and it's quicker and it's easier. Like, to you know, roast your potatoes or sweet potato or whatever it is, pumpkin, you just chop it up, covered in oil and salt, chuck it in the oven. Peeling takes so much time. I just don't know why people do it, to be honest. But you're getting so many more nutrients because so many of the nutrients are actually like right under the skin of your vegetables. So that's probably my first tip, is just really make sure that you're eating it as whole food as you can. Chocolate, if you crave chocolate, it's okay to have a little bit here and there. Dark chocolate obviously is probably the better form to have. You need to be careful with chocolate because it does have caffeine, and if you're someone who's still drinking coffee within your pregnancy and then you're having a lot of chocolate, you kind of are putting yourself at risk of having a bit too much caffeine. But dark chocolate's probably your best option. The other thing is, if you're finding you just even then will scoff chocolate, there's a recipe called chocolate fat bombs. I have a video for it on my Instagram. You can look up the recipe online as well. It's not my recipe, but yeah, that's a really good one that you can make at home. It's like 4 ingredients, and it's got less sugar in it and that sort of thing. So it's just a really good option. But that one in particular is great for the thyroid, great for your adrenals, and great for your hormones in general. So if you're looking for snack options, those are really good, and not just in pregnancy. I eat fat bombs all the time, and potatoes.
Miranda, there's just a question or a comment for second pregnancy. Just putting effort into feeding your toddler, feeding your family, and then just not having the energy left to feed yourself, which can happen first pregnancy, second pregnancy, third pregnancy. And I guess that's sort of what you're talking about in terms of, I find for me, what I allow into my environment, those choices I make when I'm actually at the grocery store, then obviously that impacts then what my choices are at home. So if I'm at the grocery store and I can not put the chocolate in my trolley, then when I get home, I just don't have those choices in my environment. So then if I really want chocolate, then I'm forced to make something like a fat bomb, which might be a better chocolate.
Exactly.
I guess for me, I found like if I make sure I have good things in my environment, then I'll be forced to make good choices. But anyway, do you have any comments about
Well, yeah, like generally getting out of that habit of buying those things at the supermarket is really tough. What I would say is, at the very least, like if you feel like, oh, I really just want a treat because I'm out at the shops and I don't get out much, and or whatever reason it is, like, hello, that's what I do sometimes. I always go for healthier options. So there's something called No Shoe, and they do these sugar-free donuts. They're gluten-free, vegan, all of these things, and they have as much fiber in them as an apple. They're all like made with whole food ingredients, and the only sweetener in there is xylitol, which is quite a good one. So if I'm feeling like, I want a donut, go for something like that instead. So you're still having a treat, and those sort of foods should definitely be, taken as a treat. But if you're having that instead of an actual cake or a block of Cadbury chocolate or something, it's all about those substitutions, and it's going to be a step-by-step process to get to that point where, it's kind of just second nature to you to, I'm feeling really like I want some sweets, I'm going to have a piece of fruit, or I'm just going to have, whatever. But generally when it comes to like feeding a toddler, like my toddler, I'm breastfeeding still, so he still does get a lot of nutrients from that. But at the moment, thank you. At the moment, I just kind of give him little finger foods, and I actually put more effort into my food than I do his. Any meals that we have, we just make them toddler friendly. You are very noisy, darling. Thank you. That is my paper. Can I have it, please? Thank you. I know you don't want me to have that, but it's mine and I need it. And you're going to hit your head. Please don't hit your head. There we go. So generally the foods, like his favorite food at the moment is like mung bean dal. It kind of surprises me how much he loves it, because one thing you always hear is like, kids only want like really bland food, but not my kid. My kid's always about like the more spices in it the better. Like pesto, because the one thing that I do that that we don't eat that he definitely eats is I get like the mung bean and lentil pasta, and I cook that up, and then I'll either put it with like bolognese or some pesto and chicken or tuna or something like that, because my husband can't eat lentils and those sort of things. So I kind of make up a big batch of that and I stick it in the freezer, so that whenever I'm like, oh God, what am I going to feed him, I can just quickly defrost that in a saucepan or something like that. But I honestly, I've never been the sort of person that puts more effort into his food than I do with mine, because I mean, that's my priority set. And obviously I'm all about nutrition because it's, you know, I've been doing this for 6 years. But, oh darling, you're going to hit your head. There you go. There you go. But yeah, I would say when it comes to that, it's better to just do little bits here and there. And like, if you're worried about veggies and stuff for kids, like honestly, they'll eat a celery stick, or they'll eat like a cucumber stick. We get these dehydrated veggie chips from our health food store, but I know that they have them at Coles as well in the bulk section. And that way he's getting vegetables in, and there's vegetables in all of our meals as well, because that's a huge priority of mine, not so much husband's. But I make sure that all of our meals have lots of veggies and that they're toddler friendly. The only issue is chili. We eat a lot of chili, so we have to be really careful with making those sort of meals. But that's what I would say. It's just try to make everything in a way that your kid can eat. And if you're creating meals that your kid can also eat, then they're more likely to be a bit more into exploring different tastes and stuff as they get older, because they're used to just eating what you eat rather than having their own unique specific meal. So it can really help later on with picky eaters as well. Okay, where was I up to? All right. So with pregnancy, probably the most well-known nutrients for pregnancy are things like iron, folate, calcium. There's others as well, but they're probably the main three that are well known. With iron, if you are somebody who's generally iron deficient, I would probably just get onto an iron supplement straight away anyway. Please stay away from Ferrograd C. It's a horrible form of the supplement. It costs like $7.50. It's because it's really cheap, and it's really cheap because they don't really care about how well it is absorbed. And so most people will find they get constipated when they're having it, or they'll get really black tarry stools when they're having it. And that's because that's the iron sitting in your gut, not getting absorbed, not getting utilized. And that's why it can take a long time for people on those supplements to get their iron levels up. Because ideally you'd like to, avoid getting a transfusion. Sometimes you need a transfusion, and it's best to get that at that point, but ideally you want to avoid it as much as you can. But make sure, if you have had iron deficiency before and you're pregnant, make sure you talk to the doctor about it. Generally they do screen for it, but it is really important that you communicate that, because your iron levels plummet really, really quickly. Even if they're really good at the start of your pregnancy, they can plummet really quickly. I really encourage people, when they get blood tests, to actually ask their doctor for a copy and actually really have a look at the reference ranges. It might seem like gobbledygook. I know it can be very, very overwhelming, but just for example, with your iron levels, there's a few different tests there. There's serum iron, which is how much is around your blood, which is an okay marker, but you really want to be looking at your ferritin, which is your iron stores. Now, the reference ranges for what the doctors use, it's somewhere between 30 and 200 is where they would like to see your iron. So if your iron stores are at like 32, they'll say you're fine. Ideally, I'd prefer to see you more in between the 30 and 200 mark. Somewhere up near 100 would be much, much better, because it's very hard for a woman to have way too much iron in their body. That usually happens more with men. But especially when you're pregnant, you really want to have that. It's important for gross. He's just slobbered some cracker all over me. Thank you. Oh, now it's going into my computer keys. Thank you, Tucker. Yeah, it's really important for the development. Thank you. Can you please, buddy? Yeah, you can sit there and you can say hello. There you go. Really important for the development of the baby, but it's really important for getting oxygen around the body as well to improve growth and help your energy levels. So, folate. Ooh, excuse me. Thank you. You're going to tangle yourself. Folate's another one that's really important, and I know that a lot of people, you know, they'll take their multi for that. Oh God, here we go. They'll take their multi for that, or they'll have fortified foods. But generally, I actually say that it's much better to get it through whole foods than fortified, because the form in your Tucker. Oh, hey, I know. Do you want some booba? Do you want some booba? Yes. There you go. Hopefully that'll settle in for a little bit. The form in your fortified foods and in your supplement is folic acid, and it's not the same as folate. So folic acid, it's basically, the best way to describe it is it's a couple of forms. Oh, it's a couple of forms or a couple of steps backward from folate, which is the nice active form. And there is a couple of genetic mutations that mean that you can't really metabolize that form very well. And so it gets kind of backed up in your system. So you can get a blood test and it'll say that you have high folic acid, but that doesn't mean you're actually utilizing it, even if you're absorbing it. So generally it's best to get it through foods. When it comes to, oh my gosh, multivitamin supplements for pregnancy or prenatal, I generally want you to avoid Elevate. It's probably the worst one, but you ideally would like one, you know, try and get one behind the counter at the pharmacy, or come and see someone like me so that you can actually get a good one. The ones that I would prescribe aren't actually available in a chemist. I can't tell you what the brands are because they have like contracts and ethics and all of that sort of stuff, but you want something with folinic acid and methylfolate instead of the folic acid. And that's, you know, it's to prevent things like cleft palate, spina bifida, tongue, lip and buccal ties, any deformations that happen down the midline. Oh God, this is fun. Yeah, so, but your food sources of folate are green leafy vegetables and legumes, which are foods that a lot of people don't eat. Oh, excuse me, hang on. Unless they're vegetarian. Yeah, okay. Yeah, they're foods that a lot of people don't eat, which is why they were fortified, really, because it's just kind of easier to, you know, get that basic standard of absorption that way. What's wrong? It's okay. I've got your icky, oh God. Okay, all right. Other booba. Sorry, guys. Yeah? Other booba?
Unmute. Yeah. But Cass, do you have any questions, or did you want to, you're welcome to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I guess the interest that I had in what Miranda had to say today was that when I was pregnant, I had put a lot of emphasis on getting a wide variety of food in my diet. And I've always had acne, and then after, and I'd always been told by gynecologists or GP, whoever, you know, like once you have a baby, your skin will just miraculously clear up. And that definitely didn't happen. And so I also noticed that when my daughter Olive, who's now 11 weeks, when she was sort of at about 3 or 4 weeks, she was like screaming, crying a lot. And a lot of people had said, oh, maybe it was just witching hour, but I really didn't feel like that was it. And I'd seen a lactation consultant who had suggested, potentially dairy could play a role in that, and that quite a lot of women would eliminate dairy from their diet sort of in those first few weeks or months for Bub.
Yeah.
And as soon as I did that, I noticed that great change in her, and her cries changed a lot. Like she would still cry, obviously she was a baby, but it wasn't belting, screaming. So I have since eliminated dairy. That cleared my skin up and as well. So it was like a double benefit. I had then also taken gluten out of my diet. So now it's like I feel great, but I kind of am stuck between this. I did all these things. I ate all these foods when I was pregnant, kind of hoping that she wouldn't have any intolerances. I didn't know whether there was any truth to that or not, but I just kind of did it. And I don't know whether I'm doing her a disservice now by not eating those foods now while I'm breastfeeding. And I'm wondering how I could still, I'm wondering whether she could pick up sensitivities or intolerances because she's not getting things because I'm not having them.
Well, so generally with intolerances and allergies, there are so many factors that go into it. I would say that, especially because your acne cleared up quite quickly from not having the dairy, that it's likely that you have a dairy intolerance. But dairy generally can be linked to acne because it's quite an inflammatory food, and it kind of mucks around with your hormones as well. There's a whole bunch of different reasons. My perspective on it really is if you're eating something that's causing your body inflammation and you're eating it for the benefit of her, but it's still causing you inflammation, you're actually passing on that inflammation and those inflammatory markers through your breast milk to your baby. So I think it's actually better to avoid the things that you are intolerant to in order to avoid further intolerance. You might find that when she's on solids that you can give her, natural yogurt and she's fine. She may not be at the same time because, she might just have this allergy. We've got to look at things like your gut bacteria and her gut bacteria and what's going on there. But it's so common to have intolerance to dairy and gluten. And it's got a lot to do with, our farming practices. And like I said, dairy is a really inflammatory food because a lot of the time we're feeding cows grain, which changes the omega-3 to omega-6 fat ratio, which I know sounds really complicated, but basically it makes it more inflammatory if it's got more omega-6s, which comes from grain. So that can be an issue. But generally, like if you're worried about missing out on nutrients, that's again where you want to go for other foods that, for example, are high in calcium. So you can easily get enough calcium by having things like tinned red salmon with the bones in. That's a really, really nutrient, calcium dense food. Almonds, broccoli, figs, chia seeds. There are heaps of different foods, and the vegans compile all these lists, which I find really handy, that can tell you all of the different foods that are really high in calcium. So it is possible to get those sources from other places other than dairy and wheat. And I really truly believe that it is it's more just the agricultural industry that profits on us eating dairy and wheat that has managed to infiltrate our health guidelines and makes us all believe that they should be staples in our diet. But I really don't think that they should be. It's okay to eat them occasionally if you can tolerate them, but honestly they shouldn't be eaten 3 or 4 times a day like most people do eat them. So I would say
that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, good. I'd say just generally, don't feel like you're depriving her of anything, especially if you know that she's getting better from you taking those out and you're getting better from taking those out as well. You have to remember that, yes, it's hard in those first few weeks as well because it's so easy to blame yourself and, all you want is to make everything okay for your baby, but you've got to look after yourself as well. And that's probably the biggest challenge is finding that way to prioritize yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hit the nail on the head. Yeah. Yeah. Because I kind of thought, am I like in a way just being, like kind of selfish? Like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want my acne to come back, so I'm not going to do this thing, which could perhaps really benefit you. But yeah, I do agree. I thought, well, if it's showing up in my skin, then it probably internally, something's really not working. But also, as I said, she improved a lot from that. So I knew that there was something else happening, but I wasn't sure, how I could still allow her or get her those nutrients that she might be missing. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Well, if you ever want to, chat to me, just, send me a DM or something. I'm happy to have a chat, or you can set up a consultation or something. But one thing I will say with the acne is skin is kind of like, it's the most obvious place that something shows up. And that's because it's kind of one of the last places to get nutrients, because it's kind of the furthest away from the body of everything else. So, those healing nutrients like vitamin C and zinc, collagen, stuff like that, they kind of go to all of your other organs first. But at the same time, if there's something going on like eczema or acne on the skin, then that's definitely a sign that there's some sort of inflammation going on inside the body, whether it's like imbalance of gut microbia or something like that. Like it's definitely a sign. But the fact that you're able to clear it up just taking dairy out of your diet, you're a very lucky woman. Not that easy for most people.
well I'll say I've been doing a lot more than just that, but yes, with fats and stuff like that. But yes, I thought, wow, this is the rate at which it's cleared up. It didn't do that before, so I am lucky.
Awesome. That's awesome. All right. I think there's a truck. So other nutrients that we want to think about, there's zinc. It comes in fish, walnuts, pumpkin seeds or pepitas. Really, really great for the immune system, which I want to talk about a little bit, because one thing that I notice with most pregnant women is it's like, oh, well, I'm eating for two, I can eat whatever I want. And I definitely did this. And you eat a lot of sugar. Now, every single time you eat sugar, it dampens your immune system for 4 to 6 hours. So if you're having, some sort of sugary breakfast, and then maybe you have like a cappuccino or, a mocha or something at morning tea, and then in the afternoon you're craving chocolate, so you have some chocolate, and then you might have some ice cream for dessert. Like, you're just basically hitting your immune system over and over and over again, and that depletes your body of nutrients, and it depletes the immune system of vitamin C and zinc, and stops it from actually being able to fight off infections. So a lot of women find that they will get much more illness when they're pregnant than what they did before, and it's partly because of that sugar. So if you're finding you're addicted to sugar, we really want to get on top of that as best we can. Again, chocolate fat bombs, really awesome. But you want to make sure that you've got lots of protein, lots of good fats in your diet, and of course, lots of vegetables. Just the fat and the protein, while they do get a bad rap, they're actually really important, nice, sustainable source of energy for the body. And if we're focusing on those, and your vegetables, nice starchy foods like potato and sweet potato and pumpkin, then you're going to be giving your body a nice sustained release of energy throughout the day. You're going to be less likely to need sugar, and then you're going to be building up your immune system. So especially with everything that's going on right now, I know a lot of pregnant women are quite worried about the coronavirus. It's just one extra thing that you can do that can really make a huge difference for your immune system. So if your immune system is in dysfunction, I would definitely suggest that you really get some good vitamin C and zinc supplements into you. About 30 milligrams of zinc is a good amount. And vitamin C, the way that we do that, really, we do it to something we call bowel tolerance, because the only real side effect that you can have if you've got too much vitamin C in your body is that it flushes you out. So it's a water soluble vitamin. It draws water into the bowel. And so if you have too much, you just go to the toilet. So the way that we do that basically is you have, 4,000 milligrams of vitamin C, and you see how you go. If that's fine, then you up it and you have 4,000 a couple of times a day, and 3 times a day, and you just kind of work your way up. Generally it's about 10,000 milligrams is a good amount, but don't go straight into that because again, you get that flush happening a bit too early. So I would definitely look at that if you're somebody who generally has a poor immune system. Probiotics, of course, something that you can look at, but that's a really long conversation. We can talk about it another time. The other thing that I want to talk about is omega-3s. So EPA and DHA are the two types of omega-3s. Generally, the best source are not vegan sources, they're animal sources. So oily fish, sardines, mackerel, tuna, and salmon are great. Tinned or fresh, it's not really, like, it doesn't really matter, but generally the mackerel is really high in the one called DHA. It's a acronym for a very long word that I can't pronounce, but that's the one that's specific for brain development, and you want to make sure that you're getting a lot of that for your baby's brain development, but also to protect your brain from postnatal depression, postnatal anxiety, and postnatal depletion. I would say with your fish, you know, especially the tinned fish, you want to make sure you're not really eating it more than 3 times a week. The sardines are better because the smaller the fish, the less mercury they have in them. But yes, the larger fish will have mercury. So 3 times a week is probably the ideal amount to have when, whether you're pregnant or not. All right, now we'll talk about post-pregnancy, 4th trimester and beyond. Again, it's that focus on repair, recovery, and just getting used to what is now your new normal of a baby or several babies, whatever's going on in your life. This is when I'm saying, like, it's so easy to feel like you were saying, Cass, and you feel selfish, but you are that one person for that baby, especially in those first few months. Like, dad is there, but even dad feels, like they're all, if you have a same-sex partner, whoever your partner is, they kind of don't feel as connected to the baby, because especially if you're breastfeeding, you are the number one for that baby. So you really want to make sure that you're looking after yourself as best you can. The more that you do that, the better you're going to cope with overwhelm, the better you're going to cope with everything that life kind of throws at you while you've got this baby, because having a baby is such an unknown thing. There are so many different factors. And so we really want to make sure that you're, getting as best quality sleep as you can, getting the support that you need whenever you can, however you can. And even things like having a shower every day, little things like that are so important. And I know they're not food related specifically, but they are a really important thing. And they can kind of go to the wayside if you're feeling overwhelmed. But they're so important that you're looking after yourself. So food definitely. Yes, it's a tree. Food definitely goes in with this. And like I was saying, like, you want to make sure that you're getting high nutrient dense. But I'm going to give you guys examples of foods that you can make and have on hand, so that you can create these meals for yourself in a pinch, and without too much effort. When wearing a baby when their baby's little, but when they get older, like this guy, I can't really wear him anymore. It makes such a bummer. I used to wear him all the time. We got so much done. No, but it's just, foods that are easy, tasty, all of those sort of things. So before I get into that, I just want to talk a little bit about breastfeeding. I do get asked a lot about, what sort of foods are going to boost breast milk supply. Generally, It's those basic things that I'm talking about. You want high protein, high fat, lots of vegetables, and starchy vegetables and foods like that. Even your ancient grains like quinoa, buckwheat, amaranth, really lovely nutrient dense foods. If you're eating enough, then ideally your breast milk supply will be okay. And there are some foods like oats, fennel, fenugreek, which can help to boost supply. Yes. I know I ended up going to my naturopath and getting a herbal formula to help my supply. But realistically, if you are having a breast milk supply issue, you need to find a lactation consultant and talk to them and get assessed for the latch of your baby. It could very likely be a tongue tie, lip tie, buckle tie issue. It could be something else, but you really want to get that latch assessed, because if the latch is not right, then the baby is really struggling to get the milk, and that supply and demand won't really be happening the way that it needs to in order for your breast milk to be produced. So once you get to about the 5 or 6 week mark and your hormones, the oxytocin and all that sort of stuff wear off, that's when the supply and demand is really, really important. So feeding your baby as often as you can, rather than just feeding it, every 3 hours or whatever the recommendation sometimes can be. Really listening to your baby, basically offering the breast whenever you can. That's going to help even when your supply does get low, because it's just that constant feedback mechanism through the nervous system. But I highly encourage you to get in touch with a lactation consultant. I tell every pregnant woman that I meet, find yourself a lactation consultant. If you don't know one, I can hook you up with a great one, because it is such a big thing. And it's something like 97% of women try to breastfeed in the hospital, and by the time they're discharged, it's something like only 60 or 50% of women are actually breastfeeding by the time they're out of the hospital. So it drops even more by about 5 or 6 weeks, and tongue tie can be one of the reasons, but there are other reasons as well. So your thyroid function, if you do have postpartum thyroiditis, that can definitely affect it. And if you're not eating enough because you're feeling like you need to get your pre-pregnancy body back, and you're trying to get that by giving yourself a calorie deficit, that can affect it as well. But generally you want to get that assessed. So that's my one note. A lot of what I'm going to say, it's the same line as when you're in pregnancy. When you're not pregnant, you want to be eating whole foods. You want to be eating protein, fat, like all of those beautiful things, lots of vegetables. I bang on about all of this because realistically your food, if we're eating in that way where we've got that abundant source of whole foods within our diet, it becomes really intuitive, so that in those times when you're pregnant or breastfeeding and you need more food, you are eating more food, but you're eating food that your body needs, and you're getting those nutrients in. And if weight is something that you're worried about, you naturally kind of lose that weight because you are really doing that. Oh, thank you, you've got my phone, cheeky. Oh god. You've got that intuitive thing going, and it takes work, but it's really important. Okay, meal ideas, because I know that's what we're all here for, right? So when it comes to meal prep, I do it a little bit different. I'm not the sort of person that goes, all right, I'm going to take my Sunday and I'm going to make 5 meals and then I'm going to freeze them all in batches for me to eat throughout the day. I just don't do that. I can't be bothered, for starters. It takes too much time, and then I get bored eating the same thing every day. So the way that I do meal prep is basically, if I'm cooking dinner, I might cook a little bit of extra of something, or I take that time to cook another extra thing on the side and have that in my fridge or whatever, so that I can put together a nice fresh meal using some of these elements that I'm about to talk about. So I really love doing things like making a batch of hummus, or baba ganoush, or what's the other one? Pesto. because you can easily like plop that on a salad for a little bit of extra fat and deliciousness. But roasted vegetables are really great. So you can roast sweet potato, pumpkin, parsnip, capsicum, cauliflower, broccoli. Like, most vegetables are easy to roast, and they're really great because you can just chuck them in a salad or a grain bowl or something like that, with some of the other pre-prepared things I'm about to talk about. But they're really tasty. I mean, roasted vegetables, they're the best. Boiled grains or legumes, so especially things like quinoa, buckwheat, brown rice, black rice, wild rice, even basmati rice, just having a little bit extra of that on hand for the next time. Usually lunchtime, I think, is probably the meal where all of this kind of comes up. I do a grated salad of zucchini, beetroot and carrot, and I just grate up a couple of that, have a nice container of it and stick it in the fridge and use that for the next few days. You don't put any dressing on it and it stays nice and fresh because there's no acidic ingredients in there. And so you can just add that to, you can even have that on the side of your dinner, or just have it in your salad, or put it even in an omelette if you really want to and you don't have time to really prep any vegetables or something for breakfast. But that's a really, really good one. Having roasted, slow cooked, poached, and even like pulled meats are a really good thing, obviously if you're not vegan or vegetarian. So having those on hand as well, just to add like protein on top of a soup, or having them, as I said, in a salad or a grain bowl. I eat a lot of salad and grain bowls. Boiled eggs are great as well because you can easily snack on a boiled egg and add them to meals. Cashew cheese is another dippy deliciousness. I don't know if I have a recipe for that anymore. I've changed websites, so if I don't, I'll put it on there. And I am working on a really yummy, like, charred capsicum one on a video for this week, so that's coming soon. And then generally things like big batches of soup and casseroles and curries and dal that are just, chuck them in a pot and heat them up really quickly. They're really good things to have on hand. You can have them in the freezer if you want, but if you're making those for dinner or whatever, you just make an extra big batch and have it in the freezer. Ways that you can put it together, like I said, grain bowl. So for example, you just get like a half cup or something of quinoa, and then top it with the grated salad and some pulled chicken, sprinkle it with some pepitas, and then maybe put a dollop of hummus. Done. You can add a bit of extra virgin olive oil or something, but it's like bang, 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 and your bowl is made and it's delicious. Oh, you have to head off. Fair enough, darling. Or roasted vegetable salad is really good. I love putting roasted vegetables in my omelette, which is really yummy. I have an omelette every day, so I just lots of butter in the pan, put in some spring onion and then some spinach, and then I top it with 3 eggs for me because I get really hungry, and cook it up, and then I have a side of like yogurt and stuff like that. Oh, who are you trying to call? No. The other thing that I would say is smoothies are a really good option, whether you're pregnant or, a mum. We're okay. Here we go. So when you're making a smoothie, if you're really finding that it's hard, you can make double and freeze half of it, or just stick it in the fridge for tomorrow or something like that. But I'd always suggest put at least 1 big handful of greens in there. Use a really good quality protein, so a collagen or one of the vegan ones, preferably a fermented one. I really like Amazonia Raw. They're really great, but there's heaps of different ones if you go to the health food store. And if you want some recipes, I'm happy to share them. But that's it.
Awesome. Thank you.
No worries.
like, I think I totally agree with everything you said. And I think it's just a matter of figuring out what's going to work for you,
Yeah.
not approaching it as, oh my gosh, I have to do all of these things, but just picking, like you said, start slow. Like I recently, it's funny because it was exactly skin. Like I had all this dermatitis happening and went to see a nutritionist, naturopath, and she was like, it's zinc. It's absolutely zinc. She was like, just take a handful of seeds, and on top of your porridge every morning, a handful of seeds, and you'll be good. And it was like, days later, it was like, it was fine,
Yeah.
and now I keep doing it, obviously, but for
Yeah.
me, leaving the seeds out, like for some reason, the going to the pantry and the getting of the seeds every morning was that one step that was too hard.
Yeah.
I leave them on the kitchen table, and then every morning I see them. I'm like, oh yeah, I need my seeds, and I'll put them in my porridge, and I'm good to go. Or like if I have a salad, I'm like, oh, I can add some seeds. So sometimes it's just making it as easy as possible for yourself, whatever that's going to be for you.
Yeah, exactly. Like for me, because I'm just so obsessed with food, like my whole thing is, does it look pretty? So if I add seeds, it looks prettier, even if it's like a hot mess. Like dal doesn't look pretty. You put a dollop of yogurt and some seeds on top and it looks so pretty. I'm like, oh, I'll eat my dal now. So yeah, you just got to find that thing that makes you excited to eat. Because like, of all of the things that I'm talking about, like for me, I'm just like, yeah, grain bowl, dal, like all of those are delicious, a smoothie, yum, and they're fun for me. But if they're not fun for you, you've got to, well, for starters, still try them anyway, but find a way to make them fun for you, because what's the point in eating if it's not fun? Yeah,
and just baby steps, like you're saying, start slow and just make one change. Like maybe, every Sunday you start roasting a tray of vegetables, and then you have those vegetables in the fridge, and then see how you go with that. And then that will become part of your habit and part of your routine. And then you can add something else, and you can say, okay, on Sunday, I'm going to roast vegetables and cook quinoa, and just, slowly build. And, because I do think women, when they're pregnant or postpartum, they're like, oh my gosh, I have to do all these things. I have to be perfect. And it's like, no. You don't have to do all the things. You don't have to be perfect. Like, like all of that pregnancy and postpartum advice, listen to different people and take bits of what they're saying that is actually going to help you. Like, we all know how hard this time is. We're not trying to, add pressure or add rules, but just hopefully people will listen today and be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I can do that. And it won't add stress, and it will benefit me and my baby.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think that's the thing. Like a lot of people kind of go very all or nothing with food. And I really wish that wasn't the case. Like even if you eat a tub of ice cream, or you have a stressful day and you go and eat like a donut or whatever it is, like that doesn't have to be the rest of your day. Like you've still got the rest of your day or even the next day to then make a change. Like you can, even after you've eaten that, drink a big bunch of water. Like even that can help to just flush everything out. Like it's not the best thing ever, but the other thing is, like, you've got to enjoy your life. And if, you're out for coffee with a friend and you're having a great chat and you happen to be having a donut at the same time, like, that's okay. It's good. It's nice. Like I still go to No Dough a lot.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're so good. Yeah. But yeah, it's that all or nothing approach that I really want to shift people out of, because it's not the end of the world if you eat something that is unhealthy, but you don't have to let it unravel everything for yourself at all. And
that can happen so easily in postpartum. I think that sort of what the hell effect. Like you wake up in the morning and you haven't had a shower and you don't even get dressed, and then you're feeling like crap, so then you're going to eat crap, and then you feel more like crap, and it's so easy to get on that pathway. So it'll be different for everyone, but like, if it's going to be a shower in the morning for you, or, giving the baby to your partner for 5 minutes so you can sit and have, proper porridge, make it pretty, cut up some fruit, if that is going to start your day and that's going to get you on that good, happy, I'm going to look after myself pathway, then do that. And it's just having that self-awareness and tuning into what you need and what's going to be helpful for you, and then adding a few little whole food nutrition tips on top of that.
100%, exactly. Vegetables. Everybody has to eat more vegetables.
Oh my God, I need to eat more vegetables.
Everybody says that to me. Hey, I have my days, all right, but I actually, because I've been doing this for so long now, like I know within myself if I haven't had enough vegetables. I can look at, like, because my husband Blake, he makes beautiful food. Like, he makes Vietnamese pho from scratch, and he makes like curries and all this stuff, and I'm like, baby, it's beautiful, but can we just add some vegetables to that? It's just never quite enough. He's getting better at it, but yeah, I just don't feel right if I'm not having like heaps and heaps of vegetables. And like, I crave broccoli and stuff. I've always craved broccoli, even when I was like a teenager. I remember just going, I'm gonna just have a bowl of broccoli, I just really need it in my life. So but I'm a weirdo, so it's fine.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. I will stop recording now, but I'll pop it up in the Facebook